Welcome dear audience, student and scholars. Here I'm Dr. Amjad Ali. Dear scholars, so far as we have learned how to calculate mean, variance and standard deviation for group data. In this particular video, we will learn how to calculate mean, variance and standard deviation for group data. So let's first let me explain about mean for group data. Dear scholars, the mean is normally obtained by dividing the sum of all values by the number of values in a data set. However, if the data are given in the form of frequency distribution table, we no longer know the values of individual observations. Consequently, in such cases, we cannot obtain sum of individual values. So we cannot find a simple mean for this data. We find an approximation for the sum of these values using the procedure which we have explaining here. The formula is used to calculate the mean for group data as follow. The mean for population data mu is equal to summation mf over n, and the mean for sample data x over bar or x bar is equal to summation mf over n. Dear scholars, here m represents the midpoint and f represents the frequency of a class. To calculate the mean for group data, first we have to find the midpoint of each class and then multiply the midpoints by the frequency of that corresponding classes. The sum of these products denoted by this summation mf that gives an approximation for the sum of all classes. To find the value of the mean, divide this sum, that summation mf or sigma mf divided by n. In population case we use this n, and in sample case we can use this lowercase n. Okay, for the further understanding about the mean for group data, let's discuss an empirical example. Here we have the frequency distribution of daily commuting time from home to work for all 25 employees of a company. So here we are using all 25 employees. This means we are using population data. So here 4 employees are commuting time is 0 to 10 minutes, and 9 employees have 10 to 20, and 6 has 20 to 30. So likewise 2 has 40 to 50. Okay, as we have highlighted that this is a population data set, and for finding the group data mean, we first have to find out m and then multiply m with f, and then we have to divide that summation mf by n. So here for getting the value of m, we have add 0 and 10 and then divide by 2, we get 5, and then 10 plus 20 divided by 2, we have 15, and 20 plus 30 we have divided by 2, we get 25. So likewise we get 35 and 45. So by multiplying 4 to 5, 9 to 15, and 6 to 25, so likewise we get 20, 135, 150, 140 and 90. So for getting the approximation, we sum these values and we get summation mf is equal to 535. So for getting the population mean, we can use the formula that mu is equal to summation mf over n, that is uppercase N. So we have summation mf is 535 divided by 25, and we get 21.40 minutes. So thus the implies of this particular company spent an average of 21.40 minutes a day commuting from home to work. So here what do the numbers like 20, 135, 150, 140 and 90 here in this column? We know that 4 implies spend 4 to 10 minutes and 9 implies spend 10 to 20 minutes. So if we assume that the time spent commuting by 4 implies is evenly spread the interval of 0 to less than 10 minutes, then the midpoint of this class gives the mean time spent commuting by these 4 implies. Hence we have 20, that is 4 multiplied by 5. So this is our approximation time for these 4 implies. So likewise we get the approximation time for all the implies of that particular term, a particular firm or particular organization. So the total average time of 25 implies when we are using the approximation, that is 535. But we find that the average behavior of these all 25 implies is 21.40 minutes. Okay, for the further understanding about the mean for group data, let's see another example. Here we have the frequency distribution of the number of orders received each day during the past 50 days at the office of a mail order company. That is in 4 days they get 10 to 12 orders, in 12 days they get 13 to 15 orders, and in 20 days they get 16 to 18 orders, and in 14 days they get 19 to 21 days. We have to calculate the mean of this group data. Because the data set here includes only 50 days, it represents a sample case. The value for the sample can be calculated with the help of this formula, that is x bar is equal to summation mf divided by n in lowercase. So first we have to find out m and then multiply m with f and then divide that summation mf by n for getting the average behavior of this data. Okay, we can calculate the m by adding 10 plus 12 divided by 2, we get 11, and then 30 plus 15 divided by 2, we get 14, 13, and then we have 20. So for the approximation, we can multiply by this frequency by this midpoint, 12 by 14 and 20 by 17 and 14 with 20, and we get mf. And for the full approximation we get the summation mf, that is 832, and for the mean value we can divide this summation mf by 50, and we get 16.64 or 64 order. So that's the mail order company received an average of 16.64 orders per day during these selected 50 days. Okay, let me give you the further explanation about the variance and standard deviation for the group data. Dear scholars, following what we will call the basic formula used to calculate the population and sample variance for the group data, and we have the formula that is sigma square is equal to summation m into m minus mu whole square divided by n. So this is for the population case, and for the sample case we have s square is equal to summation f into m minus x over bar or x bar whole square divided by n minus 1. So dear scholars, as we have highlighted in our previous videos as well, that sigma square is for the population variance and s square is for the sample variance, and here m is the midpoint as we have just discussed in our group data mean formulation. Okay, in either case the standard deviation can be obtained by taking the positive square root of these formulas, and we get the standard deviation. So here we have to highlight that as we provide the shortcut formulas for the ungroup variance and standard deviation, here we have the shortcut formulas for the variance, because shortcut formula give us an efficient way for calculating the variance and standard deviation. So shortcut formula can be written as sigma square is equal to summation m square f minus summation mf whole square divided by n, and these all will be divided by n for the population, and for the sample we have s square is equal to summation m square f minus summation mf whole square divided by n, and this all is divided by n minus 1. So here again we have sigma square for population variance and s square for sample variance, and m is our midpoint for a class, and the standard deviation can be obtained by taking the positive square root of this variance, and we get the population standard deviation, that is sigma is equal to sigma square under root or square root. We are taking the under root or square root of this part. So for the population case we can write the standard deviation formula like that, and for the sample case we can write the standard deviation formula s is equal to square root or under root s square. So for the further understanding about the variance and standard deviation for group data, so let's discuss with the help of an empirical example. So here we have the frequency distribution of daily computing time from home to work for all 25 employees of a company. So as we have explained earlier in our group data mean calculation formula. So here we have to use the fourth step for the calculation of our variance. So first we have a formula for the variance, that is sigma square is equal to summation m square f multiply f minus summation mf whole square divided by n, and this all formula is divided by n. So first we have to calculate m, and then we have to multiply this m with f, and then we have to take the square of m, and then we have to multiply m square with f. So there are normally 4 steps till we calculate the standard deviation. So first we can calculate summation mf. So for getting the summation mf, we have first find midpoint, and we know that we get the midpoint by adding 10 plus 0 divided by 2 and 20 plus 10 divided by 2, 15, and then 30 plus uh, 20 divided by 2, and we get 25, 35 and 45. And for getting the summation mf, we have to multiply 4 with 5 and 9 with 15, and we get this series, and that series is our approximation series, as we have find out this series in the case of group mean data. So here we have summation mf is equal to 535, and for getting the approximation for summation mf square f multiplied by f. So first we have to take the square of this series. Here we are not giving a m square as a separate or in a separate column. We are just taking the square of 5 and then multiply by 4, and we get 100. So likewise we get this whole series, and we get summation m square multiplied by f, that is 14,825. So we get all the values of this formula. So by putting the values or the estimated values in our variance formula, that is this approximation, and we get the answer, that is 135.04. So for the calculation of a standard deviation, to obtain the standard deviation, we can take the square root, positive square root of our variance, and we get standard deviation. So we have 11.62 minutes as a standard deviation. So thus the standard deviation of daily computing time for these implies is 11.62 minutes. So here a notable thing is that the values of variance and standard deviation here we use for group data are based on approximation. The exact values of the variance and standard deviation can be obtained only by using the ungrouped data of daily commuting times of all the 25 implies. So because we are using frequency table, so that's why we are calculating the variance and standard deviation based on approximation. So for the further understanding about the variance and standard deviation, let me discuss another example for this purpose. Here we have the frequency distribution table of the number of orders received each day during the past 50 days at an office of a mail order company, and this is the same example which we have used for mean for the group data. So we have to calculate the standard deviation of this data with the help of variance, because we are highlighting that we are using the 50-day sale of this particular company. So that's why we are relying our estimation on the sample data. So for the sample data, we have a variance for the sample data, that is S square is equal to summation m square f minus summation mf whole square divided by n, and then n minus 1. So first we have to calculate midpoint and then multiply by this midpoint by mf, and we get the approximation. And then we have m square series, and then for the m square approximation we can multiply this with frequency, and we get this value. So for this purpose, we have midpoint. Likewise, we have discussed in our previous example, we get m and then we multiply m with f and we get the approximation, that is summation mf is equal to 832. And for the m square f, we get we take the square of this series and then multiply by this and we get our summation m square f is equal to 1400 216. So by substituting these estimated values into the sample formula of variance, we can obtain the variance of this data series. And by substituting these values into the formula, we get 7.5820 variance of our data. So for finding the standard deviation, we can take the positive square root of variance and we get the standard deviation s is equal to s under root or s square root is equal to 7.5820 as a square root, that is 2.75 order. So it is approved that the standard deviation of the number of orders received at a office of this mail order company during the past 50 days is 2.75 orders. So this is all about mean, variance and standard deviation for the group data. So see you with another video. Ciao.